Hello, Ryker. It is so great to have you on the Respect My Region platform. How are you doing today?
I'm blessed, doing great. It's an honor to be here.
Awesome. So tell us a little about yourself and what you do in the music industry.
Absolutely. In the traditional sense, I own a management company. I manage a handful of artists in the region. I also consult with a pretty long list of artists as well across multiple genres. Um, I own a talent buying company where we put on a lot of concerts and events. We don't do that as much right now, obviously, but we do have that. Do a little bit, have a marketing agency that's mostly for outside stuff, but it does kind of play a part sometimes in the music side. But what I would say my main role is in the region and in the industry is my contribution to the art scene is being a levitator. So for me, I simply just levitate creativity and innovation around me. So I'm just a tool, or a cog in the machine that helps bring more light, more education, and more understanding to creatives, in my space. So I like to identify myself as a levitator.
Awesome. I've never heard anyone say that, but I mean, it sounds like an accurate term for what you do. It seems like you're kind of all over the place. You do a little of everything.
Yeah, I understand that our region's infrastructure has holes currently. There's a lot of people that want to play a very small handful of roles versus people identifying that the industry is made up of hundreds of roles. And it's starting to, fix itself over time. And we kind of knew that with the growth of people taking things a little bit more seriously and trying to push their careers farther. You have more and more people being educated and trying to find their place, in this industry. And in that, I think that it, it, my role was just to try to help bring education and to try to help bring understanding to people and showing them that like, hey, I know that you may want to be the artist or the rapper and like you could always do that. But when it comes to making money from that, you might be better suited as a songwriter or
Hmm.
you might be better suited as an A&R or you might be better suited as, you play five instruments, like go be a session musician or like you're a great producer. Like think about executive producing. Like there's just so many slots, and I think everybody gets really tied up on like one or two things.
Hmm. Yeah. So do you feel like people are like receptive to your advice? Like when you tell them like, oh, you may be better with this, are people pretty like, oh, okay, I trust this, or are they a little like, no, I want to be an artist or I want to do this?
It's hit and miss. It's hit and miss. I think that nowadays, I me and my team were just talking about how like interesting it is, right? Because I'm just me, but I remember 3 or 4 years ago where people thought what we were doing was crazy and like creating a brand and a structure was dumb and playing all these shows and getting discovered at the Knit was the only way you were going to do something. And, you know, nowadays there's a lot of people that are coming up for, advice and consulting. And so it's been interesting to kind of see that transition of people's opinions of my ideas. But I would say artists tend to be emotional and ego driven, which is what makes them great artists.
Hmm.
So you can't be mad at that. But sometimes especially when they're younger, it can be a blinder to maybe what is possible. And I think that a lot of people watch documentaries, like artist documentaries. They watch artists talk. They watch interviews, and they don't realize that all of those things are actually forms of marketing, and that the industry markets to two target markets. They have the general consumer that is, most of the average passive listeners out there that are just like, maybe going to one or two of their favorite concerts. But then they have the super fans of the industry, which would make up most of us, right? People that are literally consumed by this this thing, and we live and breathe and die by it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that they forget sometimes that the industry doesn't necessarily want you to be very educated, and there is this idea that, people are trying to tell you that you shouldn't be an artist. And, Kanye told you that, he got rejected and ended up making it and being Kanye. So you should take that rejection and stay on your path. And I think there is truth to a lot of that, right? Like, don't let people knock you off your destined spot, your destined path. But like, if you're an athlete and you go in and you're like, Coach, I'm a quarterback, and Coach looks at you and be like, no, you're a natural corner, and you go and be the best corner, that there ever was. Like, there is a piece to kind of look at somebody's personality traits, look at their skills, look at their hand, what are they really best at, and trying to push them towards things that will ultimately feed those best qualities.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a hit and miss. It can be hard. I definitely had some people that really were not happy with my opinion. But I would say that 9 out of 10 of those people are no longer in the position that they were when they said that, and
Mm-hmm.
now they're scrambling to try to find, a place. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that there is, again, there's just a lot of options and a lot of opportunity. And where one door closes, you may be able to crawl through a window and stay within the globe of the industry that you love, but just not in the initial slot that you thought you were going to be in. To be fair, I'm not even in the slot that I thought I was going to be in,
Mm-hmm.
initially. So I think
Yeah.
that's just important for people to get.
Yeah. 100%. A lot of people are just ready to become an artist and they don't realize everything that goes into it. And that, I mean, you really have to put your all into it. And if you're not willing to put your all, then there are better options, like, writing in the
Absolutely.
back, ghost writing and producing and all that stuff. And yeah, so that's good that you're educating and spreading that around to artists around you, because, they really don't know. And you're opening up these
Yeah.
new opportunities.
And there's a lot of people that want to play in the NBA, but most of those people are playing on a park, court
Mhm.
somewhere right now. Like, there's
Yeah.
very few people that play in the NBA. It's like 1% or something like that,
Yeah.
and a lot of those people that are in the park probably have a day job somewhere they hate, and they probably would have rather been a personal trainer to an NBA team, or
Mhm.
like had a role in the front office, or like
Mhm.
did something, And so that's just the narrative. It's a big world,
Mhm. 100%. Yeah. So that's really just our intro here. So I'm gonna just give a little, I guess, foreshadow of what we're gonna be talking about in the interview today. We have a few different topics. So we're first going to be talking about like building a team around you as an artist, like artist management and all that kind of stuff. And then we're going to talk about how you can utilize your local scene to build your career. And then we're going to talk more about inclusion and equality in the industry. So I guess we'll just hop right into it. So at what point of an artist's career do you feel like they're ready to start building a team?
Honestly, I think that artists are able to build a team from Jump Street if they're serious about their career, if they're serious about where they're headed. And I mean, not like, I want to do this on the weekends, I'm gonna get drunk before my set, I'm the rock star. I mean, like, actually dedicated and serious. I think trying to look for people that could be a part of your team as early as, you putting out your first project is totally within the fairness of how to operate. But I would say having an expectation that a manager or anybody that actually is in this industry would want to work with you at that point is where I think a lot of people get confused. I
Mhm.
think artists really don't need a manager until there's too much to manage.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of artists come from this of like, oh, well, I don't really want to do the email part.
Mhm.
I don't really want to do the business part. And so I want a manager to do all those things. That is not what I mean. An artist should have a foundation of being able to do all of those things. For one, when they get a manager, they will have an appreciation appreciation for what they actually do, and that is going to be very important for the strength of the relationship. But for two, I think that if you don't have a basic understanding of this industry, that is exactly how you get taken advantage of in this industry. And I think a lot of artists come with this concept and this idea that the industry is so ruthless, and it is. It's definitely a cutthroat industry. But let's go back to sports. I love sports, so I'm going to use that a lot as an analogy. If I was trying to be in the NBA, but I didn't actually know the rules of the game, I didn't know what a travel was, or like I didn't know the lingo, so I couldn't talk about V cuts or L cuts or back screens, or like if I didn't know what was going on, how could I ever expect to play at that level? And I think sometimes in this industry, people get blinded by the lifestyle, truly, and they come with this idea that, oh, like I'm making as good a music as that guy, that guy, because the 13 block syndrome around them is telling them they're great. But who in those 13 blocks actually has an educated opinion on what you're doing? And sometimes I think people forget that, like what's little Johnny, who is a plumber, know about the quality of your music? You know, like you have to get opinions from people that work within that industry. And if they're coming back, hey, you know, you might need a little bit more time on your writing. You might need to look at working with a different producer, or you might want to consider, you know, your sound in this way a little bit. I'm not saying, you know, sell out and just do whatever anybody in the industry says, but like at least take those sound bites for consideration and make alterations as you identify what really needs to change.
Yeah, that's definitely crucial for new artists. And I feel like artists, I mean, the majority of them are like just completely blind to that. They think they're just going to put a song out, they're going to tell their friends, and it's just going to spread like wildfire. So, I mean, the opinion of people in the industry is like absolutely 1,000% necessary. Otherwise, you really have no clue. There's really no way to know.
And no management company, especially an established one, is just going to take a risk off of a person they have no idea who they are. You know, like you have to do some groundwork to establish yourself, because that really is okay. I have this thing where talent is a prerequisite to our industry. You being talented doesn't necessarily separate you from anybody else. Everybody here is talented.
Yeah.
What is going to separate you is your work ethic beyond your talent. So people want to know that you're living some level of a healthy lifestyle. People want to know that you're, you know, working on your craft to the point when I go see you live, you're not so intoxicated, or you don't know your lyrics so much that you have to rap over your backtracks. Like, I'm going to say that one more time, because that is a huge problem in our region right now. Stop rapping over your backtracks. Having ad-libs, having certain sections, having hooks, that's all in game. But just karaokeing your song, why am I paying to see you do that? Why am I paying to see you intoxicated? Why am I paying to see you be misogynistic on stage? Like, this is more than your ego. And I think when people are looking to build a team, they got to understand that their professionalism across all facets of this industry is what's going to attract the best team to get them where they're going. So it really all starts and stops with the artist and their professionalism and the amount of energy and effort they're willing to put in. Don't ever look for a manager so that they can do the work you don't want to do. That is not how the relationship functions.
Yeah, for sure. And then I'm curious, how do you feel about artists getting managers that may not have really any experience in the industry but are passionate about management and are learning, you know, online, or, you know, maybe just like a buddy of an artist that just wants to help out? Like, how do you feel about that route for artists?
Honestly, that's how I got started. So I would be a huge hypocrite if I didn't like support that to the fullest. However, I think that you do need to look at people's like personality traits as well as their habits and their actions over their words. So if you have a person that's like, I want to be a manager, and they're like your best friend, that can be a tricky beginning, because it is, a manager has to have a certain level of an authority It doesn't need to be flexed or anything like that, but there just needs to be a certain level of like, I have to be able to say and or possibly discipline when certain things aren't moving the way that they need to.
Mhm.
And I don't think discipline's a great word, but just being able to actually hold somebody accountable and
Mhm.
responsible.
Yeah.
And that can be hard when you guys are, friends.
Yeah.
So I definitely encourage people to try to stay out of like relationships, like people they're dating and friendships, and try to go and identify an artist within the scene that they're passionate about and approaching them like that so that you can build that healthy dynamic. But outside of that, I mean, I'm self-taught. I never went to any school or anything like that. YouTube University. I got very blessed to have an amazing mentor. He moved up from California. He spent 15 years in the industry, and he was here to do some things in cannabis in Washington. And I happened to build a brand with him on that side of the world. And in turn, he gave me the keys. He gave me the game. And I didn't realize how much game he really gave me until I started working with people in bigger markets. And I was realizing I was understanding things they were saying at a level that nobody else around me understood. So the education and reading certain books early on put me on a path that was like well beyond the people around me. So I highly recommend self-educated managers. I highly recommend anybody who is interested in management, is passionate about music and wants to support an artist like that to definitely consider it and try it out. It's a lot of effort, but I think that we need more people with the mentality that they can and want to be a manager.
Yeah.
So I'm all here for that.
For sure. And like, yeah, I mean, from someone that went to music business school, like I could tell you, you do not need to go to music business school to be a manager at all. So yeah, I mean, it's really mostly about the passion and the drive to learn. So yeah, I mean, if you have like, I mean, one piece of advice I'd give is like for artists looking for managers that might not be looking for a huge management company and are skeptical of getting a friend to help them is look for students, even if they're not like music business students, like look for people in college that are like, still trying to figure out their career path, and maybe they're studying business because they don't know exactly what they want to go into, but they love music. So, working together with people like that could always be a great option.
Absolutely. And I feel like people like, I don't know, it's almost like a super fan. Like it just like arises and comes to you. Like I feel like when you really put that energy out and you're looking for management and you're being professional and strategic about your approach for that assessment, you will find what you're looking for. I really believe that our region is blossoming in this industry right now. And there is a lot of interested people. There's a lot of hungry people. People just need to start trusting each other, giving each other a chance, but they have to remain professional on both sides. Artists and managers have to understand that the professionalism is what's going to, project them past, that bottom ring.
For sure. So, hold on, next question. Who should be the first person on an artist team? And the reason I ask this is because if you ask a big industry person, they'll likely tell you it's an attorney. Yes, but I don't agree with that because, small artists, yes, an attorney is important for things, but when you're first starting out, you don't really want to think about an attorney. So,
agreed. So I have one or the other. So I would say that it depends a bit on the market that you're in. I think that if you're in LA, if you're in New York, if you're in Chicago, if you're in these major markets, I can see why an attorney is people's first choice. And I'm going to explain because originally I never understood this. An attorney works with a lot of different people in the industry across a lot of different facets. They usually are behind Netflix productions, and they're behind record label signings, and they're behind producers working with major, artists. And so they can get an artist attached to and or open opportunities because they can see the map in ways that almost nobody else can because they're connected at every level. So I do see why people would say attorney. And I think that if you're trying to get around, you know, or get cut through the LA scene or something that's like so dense like that, an attorney might be a good first step. However, I would say the personal manager is my preference because I think that that is the filter and the individual who's going to help you build everything. They're going to help you build a foundation. They're going to help you build a brand, and they're going to help you build every single team member after them. That is one of the main pieces to a manager, is helping the artist build the team around them. And so if you can start with a very strong step, with a very strong relationship with a personal manager, that will really open up so many more pieces. And an attorney can be a second step or a third step, you know, because a personal manager can double as a tour manager, and can double as a business manager if there's not a lot of business, you know, going around. In our company, we have a business manager. His name's Brayton. He's my business partner. And the way we do it is we have an entire roster. So we have split certain responsibilities up between the two of us, and I handle a lot of the personal manager responsibilities, you know, a lot of the face-to-face, a lot of the hand-to. He is the business manager, which is a lot of the budgets and the numbers, as well as the marketing director. So I usually build a lot of the campaigns, but he is like the execution behind, you know, the Facebook ad itself or the YouTube ad itself, the actual execution of that, but the content creation side and how the artists get from their ideas to, you know, an actual piece of asset, that's like my side. So that's how we kind of structure things.
Cool. So what does an artist manager do for an artist?
You know, I think that an artist manager's main role is to help deliver the artistic influence of the artist, the creativity that flows out of them. And that's going to come with filtering certain things in, as well as filtering certain things out, and trying to help keep the artist in line with their goals, which I think is the number one mistake most people I meet make. Without a set of goals, you'll never know if you reach them or not. So the reason most people are not happy with their results, and they're always like, oh, I wish this would have done this, or man, why can't I get this and this, is because before they even started, they didn't have goals to meet. And if they had goals, they might actually look back and reflect and be like, wow, oh, we actually did do this, and this, you know? And so it's way harder to come with that positivity when you never had goals in the first place.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that it's just important. Actually, you got to read me the question again.
No worries. What does an artist manager do for an artist? So you were answering, but you went a little off.
I did. I got a little lost. But I mean, the core of it is to help deliver the creative ideas from the artist to the public, and to be a barrier as well. I think a lot of people don't understand that, like, artists that have managers typically get paid more for shows because there is this already existing infrastructure of, like, if I have to talk to a barrier and I can't talk to the artist is worth more. You know, and so when artists have managers, if they're not filtering things through their manager correctly, they're only doing themselves a disservice. You know, and so a manager can help filter, you know, feature requests. They can help connect their artists to brands that are going to help take that project farther. But an artist and a manager, the relationship is built around just communicating, as well as helping artists maintain their selves. Like, artists, I said earlier, like, very emotional driven. And there's a lot of highs in this industry and a lot of lows. And I think another huge piece to a manager is helping artists kind of ride that roller coaster and stay as, you know, even keel as they can.
Yeah, for sure. So, what should an artist not expect a manager to do? Because I know that a lot of the times an artist has an idea that a manager will do A through Z, but that is not the case.
Right.
So,
Uh, I would love to sum it up into the idea of all the work you don't want to do. That's like when people have that approach about it, it really like muddies up the relationship. You know, everybody has an area of responsibility. One, artists have to keep up on their emails. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter if your manager is doing, all the brand conversation or whatever else. At some point, there has to be communication that gets back to the artist. And when it's all verbal and there's no written um, conversation, a lot of details get lost.
yeah.
At first, it's easy to keep track of it all, but after you get, to a certain point, it just becomes nearly impossible. And so I would say, emails are like a huge thing that I got to get artists to understand their responsibility. Also, I would say continued education on the industry's infrastructure and like how it works in a both artistic way, but also in a business-based way. A manager is definitely there to protect an artist's brand, but if an artist has no idea what's going on and doesn't even understand the space that they're in, it can be really detrimental, across the board.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, like an artist has to understand a manager isn't them. We're an extension of them. So, when your project's out, I can go out and network for you, to some degree, but it's only going so far. At some point, you have to show up. You have to be a part of this conversation. You have to show face. You have to shake hands. There is no better marketing than the artists themselves.
Yeah.
And, a manager can take on a lot of that responsibility, but not all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that the creativity past the music is still the responsibility of the artist. A manager is supposed to take what the artist brought and deliver that to a consumer base in a package that's going to be sellable. That's, the portion. But if the artist comes with like, here's the music, but like, I don't really know what I want to do with the cover. I don't know what I want to do with any of the creativity past this. I don't know what I want to do with the assets. Like the manager can help. They can give concepts. They can be a part of that conversation. Like it's definitely collaborative. But if the base root is that with the artist, it just doesn't translate. It doesn't touch the audience the way that something that feels authentically rooted from the artist from the beginning would do.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Like it could seem a little forced and not as natural to the artist.
Marketing has to be subtle,
Yeah,
unless you're like a
especially
little
nowadays.
like unless you're really commercial, like intentionally overtly commercial, it's got to be kind of woven in.
Yeah, and that's like I feel like that's been like a shift in I don't want to say the past few years because it's definitely been a little maybe longer than that, but just like a shift in the media of like before when media and stuff was new is we wanted these high productions. We wanted to try to make everything a high production because that's what people liked and that's what people felt was more maybe not authentic, but that's what they connected to. And now the tables have turned where people are sick of that cinematic stuff. They want actual authentic stuff.
Raw.
Like I mean, if you're scrolling on TikTok, you see like the quality of the camera doesn't really matter anymore. It's the content. Does the content connect?
Absolutely. And I think that it's a beautiful thing, but it's a tough thing too, because I think that we're starting to get more segmented out demographically into like what we're into. They're starting to be way more specific about what they're delivering to each, subgroup. But I do appreciate that we're going back to like a very raw, authentic, untouched, form of content
Mm-hmm.
and assets. And so I think that it's important. I think right now the DIY, the independent, the emerging artist, it's a go time right now.
Yeah,
It's like easier than ever to compete right now.
for sure. So what do you think may be some red flags that artists should keep an eye out for when they're looking to add people to their team? Whether that's like they're looking themselves or they have maybe people
Yeah.
reaching out to them.
Yeah, I would say, let's start with compensation. I would say traditionally you want to find a manager that's gonna be somewhere between like percentage deal of like 15 to 20%. And I know you went to school, so I'd love you to weigh in here, but it just depends on like if you're an artist that is brand new and you have absolutely really nothing to offer, don't be surprised if a manager is talking about 20% with you because at the end of the day, they got to take you from the ground. But if you're a bigger artist, you already have, leverage. If they're not a huge management company and there's somebody that's like really just there to support you and kind of be a part of your team, you might be looking at 15%. Maybe you could get it down to 10. I doubt it. That's usually if you're like really superstar status and you're able to prove, extreme amounts of revenue. People got to remember this is a business overall. So if you can prove revenue and you have that leverage, you're able to negotiate a different percentage. But if you're starting from the beginning, people that are talking 20%, like that's probably where they should be at. I think 25 is too high personally. But that's just for the role of like management. Tour managers typically, especially in the early age, early, brand, you're going to be paying probably per diem or like, paying per tour, not necessarily putting them on percentage. Your business manager is most likely going to be on a percentage based, and your lawyer, same thing. So just like trying to figure out and making sure that people are within a proper pay scale. And also trying to like not pay top dollar for everybody in the beginning. Like you're not making thousands of dollars per show, so you can't pay $300 for an LD, which is a light design. You can't pay $150 for a sound engineer. You gotta, the same way that you found a manager in a gritty way, you got down and you found somebody that was willing to just like work with you and make, put that time forth and maybe get a percentage, but that they're grinding with you. So if you don't make money, they don't make money. You got to find a light designer that's willing to do it for $20 or $40 because they love you and they believe in you, or find a sound engineer that's, willing to use your producer as well, and so he's coming in and he's going to do the sound, the live sound with you and like, be a part of the process from top to bottom and just trying to build the pieces, as collaboratively as you can without like, expecting too much from people, but also like spending too much for people. I think that people trying to find their proper rate is a really important first step. So there's that. I also think like you got to be careful about sharing lawyers. Shouldn't share lawyers with your management team, because if you guys get into a dispute, one of you not going to end up having a lawyer, and I promise it's not going to be your management team. So that's like a huge red flag. I would be really careful about like sunset clauses. I think that there is relevant to them for a certain degree. People get used to sunset clauses when like a management gets you to a certain point, they get you signed, and then a big label swoops in and takes you and gives you a new manager, and you lose your old manager, they get kicked to the curb. They have a clause usually in the contract that gives them X amount of years of a percentage payback on any of your royalties or revenue made past when they got, asked to leave, basically. And the reason for that is that they built you to that point, so they should deserve revenue, past a certain point to help kind of compensate them for that time that they put in. But you should don't let that go 10 years, don't let that go too long. You should keep an eye out on those clauses. So I would just say if you're signing contracts, make sure lawyers look at them and you're careful about clauses. If you're not and you're just doing things, real DIY, just be conscious of compensation rate, and other than that, always look for people that are working at your pace. It's one thing I really struggled with at the beginning was that I worked with some people that just weren't ready for the same pace that I was. You gotta run with similar runners. Cheetahs gotta run with cheetahs, and elephants will run with elephants. Or however.
Yeah, that's a really good piece of advice. I think that's definitely something I wouldn't really think to even think of.
Yeah, I think that you gotta be on some champion mentality, really, and to be with other people that are champion mentality, and if you go to a school like Duke or, you go to school like, guns basketball or whatever, like, you walk in that gym knowing, like, a certain mentality that you are going to be a playoff player, you're going to be a champion player, and everybody in that room's got to share that energy. And if somebody's like, oh, I'm going to just sit and eat Cheetos and play video games and like, I'm not going to rehearse or I'll run through it one time, two times before my set, like it's all good. Like eventually you're going to run into a head and, there's somebody's got to wake up. And so I would just say always try to identify people that are on the same general path as you, like Jango before a show, he rehearses. There's 3 types of rehearsals for one. A vocal rehearsal, a stage rehearsal, and a workout rehearsal. And he does, each 2 times a week. And so it's like he probably put 15 rehearsals in before a show. And so that's why things are so much tighter. And that's that separation between people that are making this a career and people that are, just kind of doing it on a Saturday.
Yeah, and that ties into something that my mom always told me growing up. Is like you are the 5 closest people that you hang around. So,
Absolutely.
You got to make sure everyone's as motivated as you and the next person. So, what would you say to artists that feel like they can't afford to have a team around them because, maybe they're not making any money whatsoever?
I would say that you got to go back to the idea of finding people that are passionate about you, your art, and the direction you're headed. And they also are passionate about wanting to be in the industry. And they're willing to give up or pause or negotiate a deal of compensation at a later rate so that you guys can move together. If we were focused on compensation inside of our team, which everybody is getting compensated, there are deals across, all parties. Everybody knows exactly what's going to happen when, there's revenue coming through. But we also are really scrappy. We also come together and find ways to make sure that we can travel the way that we do, that we can, play as many shows as we do. And we fight as a team because we all have a bigger dream and we all see the vision on how we can get there. And we all recognize that every single one of these pieces are an important piece to get there. As a manager, I can't be what I want to be without an artist that's going to put out that same level of effort. So it's like, same thing with, Jango or Trey or, Daethstar, like they are going to have a hard time getting to their goals without a manager who's going to help facilitate those things at that level and be as professional as they want to be about it. So I would just go back to trying to find people that are all in that same zone. Like if you don't have much to offer, if you don't have much to leverage, don't go to the biggest management company in the region and be like, hey, I'm the greatest artist, sign me. I think that people forget that approach is like over half the battle in the first time that you meet people. The reason that we have the network that we have the relationships that we have is because of approach. You cannot approach people in the DMs and be like, you should sign me. Like, like people use email in business. Like reach out and be like, hey, what's your proper, what your preferred form of communication? I'd love to chat with you about, some possible business in the future. My name's, blah, blah, blah. I'd love to send you over my EPK. Most artists that want management don't even know what an EPK is. Like, these things got to be on the same level, So find people that are on your level, but are also trying to go to the same level you're trying to go, have similar goals that you have, and just start building a team. I honestly think at no point can you not build a team. We built a team from literal ground, nothingness, no money. Nobody was doing it like that. Nobody around us was doing it like that. None of us had an education to do it like that, and yet we did it.
For sure. And I mean, you can't do it without a team. Like, if you're an artist out there and you think that you can do it alone and you want to do it alone, you cannot.
I wish I had 5 minutes to just laugh really hard right now for everybody who thinks they can do it without a team.
Laugh, I'll elongate it. Okay, so that's kind of the questions for the first part of the interview of artist management and stuff. So now we want to talk about how artists can like utilize their local scenes and stuff, because I feel like artists. Wait, are you there? It shows that you're frozen.
Oh,
okay. Okay, you're good now. You were frozen for a sec. Okay, yeah. I feel like a lot of artists don't really realize how helpful building in their local scene can be versus just trying to like build themselves online. So we're gonna dive right into that. So what would you say to an artist that feels like they won't make it because they aren't in a major music city?
Well, I would say that I live in Spokane, Washington. So I don't know if anybody knows where that is, but it is in Washington State, the second largest city in Washington, but please do not let that fool you. It is on the east side of the state, and it is in a lot of ways the farthest thing from what most people would consider a music city. I think we're kind of like an Austin or like not a Nashville because they have such a deep root, but like, and not that Austin doesn't, but we're a sub city that really could hold our own in arts and culture once we're able to press past this boundary that really doesn't exist, but just has existence. We haven't been able to push past this space because over time we've only gotten ourselves here, and then we've been like, okay, now we want to push to here, and that comes with better professionalism, more players, more people putting time and energy into the scene, more equity, more diversity. All these things is what's making the scene get bigger and bigger over time, and more eyes are happening over time, and as we break through that ceiling, I think you'll find that, Spokane's going to have its place. Not that this is about Spokane. But the point is, when you're in a small city, to me, I think that is almost, there is a benefit to that. Because when you make mistakes, the world didn't see it, for one. So you get to learn at a little bit of a slower curve and not forced to learn at like an LA speed. Yes, you will probably have a lot of lack of infrastructure. The internet is great for filling that in. I strongly recommend leaning into and creating, if it doesn't exist, a local scene. Because what a local scene will do is create kind of these pockets of knowledge about the art that would have never existed if these two artists would have never met, for one. For two, you'll find that there's a lot of education that sits in the shadows. And if you can find somebody who's been doing this for 10, 15 years, you can find the local venue owner, you can find the local management company, and just sit and have a consultation, ask to buy them lunch, go to one of their events, be a part of the scene, and you will find so much knowledge and education around you. So much opportunity just comes from being present. And I think that one of the biggest areas that I find that artists struggle with is that they make all this music in the studio and they even want to play a show here and there. And they got this huge ego about why nobody writes about them or why they don't get put on these festivals. And I'm like, well, you're never around. You're not a part of the scene or the community. Like, people don't know who you are like that.
Yeah.
And I think when people get obsessed about their own view and they got 13 blocks and it seems like everybody's talking about them, well, really, like, your friend group, your mom's friend group and your cousin's friend groups is like all that's really talking about you. And when you're in high school, you get like really, you miss that because you have this huge pocket of people that are talking about you for 2, 3, 4 years. But when you get outside of that, it's totally different.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way to really move your art forward to get the best quality you can is to use your network to find out, like, what is this other creative human being doing? Who else is pushing the boundaries? Like, how can I pair up with a videographer that's doing something like nobody else has seen or heard before? Like, you got to remember that all these people that we look up to, the Colt Bennett's of the world, he was just a videographer that was surrounded by artists that all started to pop around the same time. They were spending time with each other. They cultivated, a community, and that community exploded.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that art and community is how you get, fireworks. You can't, like, art without community doesn't have that. You need both components.
Mm-hmm.
And learning to work with a community, learning to build a community all starts literally in your community. And so a lot of people don't know how to build fan bases because they don't know how to build community. And so I think that relating those things to each other will help people understand that, like, being a part of your local scene is a big deal, because what happens if you blow up? How are you going to be a part of the LA scene if you don't even know how to be a part of the scene?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important to be in the know who's some of the biggest, DJs in town that I can, like, get my record to, who works at the radio, and who is the writer at the Inlander, the spokesman of the local newspaper, the magazine, or,
Mm-hmm.
You got to know who these players are to move, and you're not going to know if you're not a part of the community.
For sure. And that community is going to just support you too. And the more support you have, I mean, the more motivation
Absolutely.
you get. And
you can blow up on the internet. There's definitely an entire route for that. So I don't want people to, like, look at this and be like, wow, old school, right? Like, I am a little old school in my approach. I think that community, especially right now, is super big deal because we have been so detached from each other that we are, like, longing for that. There is a lane where you can blow up on the internet. However, I find that a lot of people that blow up on the internet, that's all that is there. They don't get
Mm-hmm.
merch sales like that. And even if they do, they don't really tour like that. And, like, there are pieces to all of it that get missed if you just live on the internet. So I think
Yeah.
the internet is a portion of it. But to me, I like to build brands that are stronger and deeper rooted than, just a million streams on Spotify.
Yeah. And, like, bouncing off that, like, a connection online is, compared to a connection in person is, like, if you're building in your local scene, first of all, you have the people locally around you are going to automatically connect with you because you're from the same area. And then if they're able to see you around town at different performances and at community events, and they're literally, in person seeing you, they're going to build a much deeper connection with you. They're going to want to buy your merch at your next show rather than,
Absolutely.
I could see the same person on the internet every day, but there's no, personal connection there. There's nothing personal that's connecting us. We don't have, that common factor of living in the same area or anything. So, I mean, people like to ride hard for their local talent. So, I mean, people need to trust that and take advantage of it.
I completely agree. I think everything you said is spot on. I think that rooting for your local sports team is honestly no different than rooting for your local musician. Like, your local sports team, you buy their merchandise, you go to their events, you cheer for them. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's very synonymous, and local people want to support local art. And, we just got to remember that if we're not putting that effort out to even be a part of it, then we should have zero expectations that they deserve to write about us, talk about us, or shine a light on us at all. Those things got to go hand in hand.
For sure. So I feel like you kind of touched on some of this, but I still want to ask the question just in case you have more things that come to mind. But what are some ways that artists can take advantage of their hometown when building their career? Like, what are some specific things that they should be doing on, like, a daily basis or just, like, a monthly, just, like, maybe occasional things they can do and kind of, like, daily things they could do?
I would say jam sessions, open mics, like go be a part of those types of things. I also say like if you're doing any networking events, like in Spokane, we just started this all ages networking event for the entertainment community. It is the first Monday of every month. We hold it at the Saranac Commons. Black Label Brewing supports it, so they do that. Also Peace Pie, so we have like pizza and like pops and sodas for the underagers, and then like beers and stuff for everybody over 21. And this networking event has really opened up conversations. Like what our earliest or our youngest person there was like 14 years old. So we had venue owners talking to 14-year-olds, and they were finding themselves in opportunities that low key would have had to wait till they were 21.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so it was just like go find networking events that like break down those barriers, where you don't have to be maybe a certain age or a part of a certain group to like be in the conversation. Also panels. A lot of local scenes will have panels for education. Show up to those types of things because those are the people that are probably making some of the biggest moves in your area because they're the business people. And they'll be able to connect you or at least guide you or put you on the right path, as long as you approach them respectfully.
Mm-hmm.
But showing up to stuff like that really like goes a long way and shows people that like, oh, okay, you're putting in that effort that we would be looking for the person that we want to like, help move on. So I would say again, just like being a part of the scene and finding different things. And if those things don't exist, collaborate with somebody and make it.
Mm-hmm.
Like studios want to have artists in there and do jam sessions because it's only going to make more artists want to book, an actual session there. People like go to listening parties when artists like start releasing their projects, put out listening parties, like attend that type of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
or create it. That's what we did. If it doesn't exist, go watch how it's done on the internet, go and create it. But you got to show up. You got to show up.
Fact. So tell us a little, you keep talking about Spokane, so tell us a little more about the independent music scene there and what you've learned being involved with different local artists.
Man, the independent scene here is really special. Like, I think we're like a pocket that a lot of people miss, but honestly, we have I would put some of our venues against a lot of venues in the country. The Lucky Lounge, we used to have this place called the Bartlett that is like, it was one of the best all ages venues in the country, period. Like it was amazing. And we have a lot of passion here. What we're missing is infrastructure. What we're missing is a city that wants to put revenue and into not just like the grant side of the scene, but opportunities that are going to be like move culture and social at the same time. I think that people miss like playing an artist's music at, the Gonzaga game or like, playing an artist's music at, the baseball game, like little stuff like that, or like using an artist in a movie extra spot, like making those collaborations across those lines. Like the people that work at the radio station, they need to go to more concerts. They need to know who are the poppin' artists in the scene. They need to, even if they're not playing their music on the radio necessarily, there needs to be able to be like a man. I don't know if y'all know, but Jango's got a show. Like there has to be a knowledge and a care across this infrastructure for it to all function. So I think that if I could give any downside to my city, the infrastructure is still very young and it's missing gaps, but the passion is there. The talent is absolutely there. This region is packed with talent, and my city is very talented. There's a lot of people that are starting to turn a corner on the professionalism and how they move. And what I've learned is when somebody steps forth and says, nah, this is possible, everybody else rallies and looks at it and says, you know what? I think that's possible. I think this also is possible. And I think this over here is also possible. And so the one thing that when I came back, I was born here in Spokane. Went to Arizona for like 4 or 5 years. When I came back to the scene, one thing that I everybody was talking about is like, you can't make it out of here. This is not possible. This is a lot of negativity.
Mhm.
When one person, two people, three people just start coming at it with positivity, with possibility, with we can do this, changed everything. And the scene 2, 3, 4 years later is so healthy and booming, and people are now realizing they can go to Seattle. You know, we started this trend where we said, you know, we've done a lot in Spokane. Now we're going to start going to Seattle. We go to Seattle, you know, once every 3 months. And then it was once every other month. It was once a month. It was once every 4 weeks or 3 weeks. And now I'm literally half my month I like live in Seattle.
Mhm.
And that's a part of the extension of the scene now for us. And that just came from being like, okay, well, it's possible. Like, how do we do it? How do we collaborate here, here, and here? We all get in one car. We identify specific events that are important to go to, and we go. Like,
Mhm.
no more excuses, you know? I think
For
that when
sure.
you're in a small town, you cannot come with excuses of why you couldn't do this, this, and this. Everybody who made it had to go and sacrifice a lot. Not a
Mhm.
little, a lot. Years of their life, years of comfort, and that's just what it is. So I think that it's taught me that, you know, there's no off limits to the grind. Everything's a grind. We drive through the night, we leave Seattle at midnight, get home at 5 a.m. all the time. People ask, how do you do that? It's crazy. Well, I'm passionate, and what I want
Mhm.
is something that is, you know, it's something people just haven't been able to see before, but now I got other friends that are doing it, you know, and we get out there and now I got 5 or 6 or 7 people from Spokane, and it's like so cool to see that it's just grown, you know,
Uh-huh.
it's just grown. So passion and positivity. That's
For
what I've really
sure.
learned. The important things in a small town are passion and positivity.
Mhm. Yeah, Spokane sounds very special. I honestly don't think I ever heard of the city before I started working with Respect My Region, but we put on a lot of Spokane artists, and they're always, you know, top notch. I mean, we put on your guys, like, I mean,
Absolutely.
Jango's killing it, All Day Trey's killing it. But yeah, you guys are killing it over there, and it's exciting to see.
Thanks.
So on to kind
Definitely
of like,
creating something.
yeah. So on to the last topic of inclusion and equality in the industry.
Hmm.
So it's known that, you know, men are the majority in the industry. So how do you navigate such a male dominated industry?
Well, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, yeah.
Frankly, I just come with this energy that like I don't give a fuck personally, but I am blessed because my parents raised me with this idea that like I could do anything.
Yeah.
Like black, female, queer, it didn't matter. It was like what you put in and what you show people is what is possible. And
Mhm.
so Ryker is not my born given name. It's just a part of who I am in this industry and what I want to be perceived as and represented as. But I very intentionally picked a gender neutral name because for me, it's about the business that we're doing here. If you want to make it about whether I'm female or male or this or that, like that's a reflection of you. But to
Mhm.
me, I just want to bring good business forth and do good business with people doing good business. And so I know that I am blessed to be able to take that approach. That also comes with, you know, being a stud and having a masculine approach to my outward appearance, and so and my general personality as well. And so I get to kind of that is a privilege, and I get to kind of fit into circles that more feminine women struggle to fit into. So I
Mhm.
will speak on that, but I encourage women as much as possible to just come with that energy of like we belong, and we will continue to break down barriers that we don't belong in these certain roles.
Mhm.
Um, I think that what's really important is for women to continue to put forth the quality that we have, the professionalism that we've shown. I mean, some of the best that are doing it right now are women. And I think that what I struggle with in the industry is it tends to seem that we get typecasted. that we can only play like the producer role, but you can't be the director. You can be the tour manager, but probably not the brand manager. And if you are the brand manager, every like person ahead of you on the label or the president and CEO, whatever, all men, and so we get like put into these spots. And I think it's changing. I definitely have seen shifts, strong shifts. But we continue to need to bring diversity farther than women. It's not just women, it's people of color, and it's also, queer people and people that are across that queer spectrum. And making sure that, and I'm going to say this because, this is a deeper conversation, but making sure that we don't replace the support of the POC side in giving us a queer person. Giving us a white queer male doesn't replace the need for a person of color that's female or a person of color in general. So I just want to say that because right now there's a big conversation about, the gay agenda kind of stepping in and overshadowing the overarching need for diversity as a whole. But I think those conversations are one and the same, but also can be very different in spaces. So I think that we need to, as an industry, be aware and be conscious and inclusive and not always just look to our best friend, because our best friend is probably going to be somebody that has a similar ideology and thought process as us, meaning they might look just like us and they literally are a carbon copy of whatever that is. And so that's how we've gotten this place of like, heterosexual white male control. And I think that we need to realize that you aren't going to get the best conversation unless the table is full of different faces and different ideologies and different thought processes. My business partner, Brayton, is a white heterosexual male that grew up in a bit more of a privileged lifestyle than I did. I wouldn't call him privileged by any means, but when we look at, maybe the compensation rate of, or the income rate, of our families, he lived maybe a little bit more of a privileged life in that space. And I love that. We love that. We love that we are literally opposites in so many elements. He's heterosexual, I'm queer. I'm female, he's male. I'm black, he's white. When we think about things, it's beautiful because we do not come from the same perspective most of the time. And so I think that when you create assets, when you create content, when you do anything, you need to add women into those conversations. Like male brands that are all ran by men that are trying to appeal to women are going to struggle because you do not have a woman in your conversation filtering out what you don't see, And so like even me, I try to make sure, even if we don't have somebody on our immediate team, we consult with a lot of women on queer women, heterosexual women, women of color, white women, because I only have my perspective as a queer, masculine-driven, female. And so, like, I still have things that I don't see. And so I think that until the table is diverse, people are going to continue to watch assets and continue to watch stuff and be like, wow, how did they miss that? Wow. Like, they are not appealing to their demographics because they don't even know how to speak to their demographics.
Yeah. And it is evident when there isn't females on the team. Like, that just reminds me of this thing I saw on LinkedIn where a cannabis brand made a vaporizer for women, and it was like the way it was marketed, and then everyone's like, you clearly didn't have a woman on your team if you made this. So yeah, it's evident, like, yeah, very crucial. And that goes right into my next question. So I'm just going to ask it because, you were kind of answering it. But what ways do you feel people of color and women and queers can contribute to the music industry that maybe others couldn't?
Yeah, I just think perspective is a huge thing. Like, I lived a very different experience than any of my heterosexual counterparts. Any of my male counterparts, but they also lived a different experience than I did. However, I feel like we've been listening to and hearing their experience for hundreds of years. And it's time. Like, when you look at America, I don't love describing it as a melting pot, but like, we are made up of so many different subcultures, and so many different, not even subcultures, just cultures in general. Just so many different cultures from so many different places from all over the world. Like so many different people are here. And so many different people have been watching content, listening to music, and watching entertainment and not feeling related to, not seeing themselves. You know, people that wear glasses. You know, like just even to that small detail, people that have curly hair. You know, like there is so much lack of representation that I think what the female, the queer, the people of color, what they can help bring is to show people where that lack of representation has been and how we can do a much better job with it. Because, I mean, when I watch TV sometimes, you're like, you know, black people come in all shades, but it's sometimes when they make up a family, you're like, come on now. Like, did you even really try to find actors that, like, could even believably be a family? You know, like we're all over this shade spectrum here, you know, and like sometimes, you know, where, and I'm talking big media here, I'm talking big corporation, but they'll stick in a safe space where they're like racially ambiguous people. And like I think that going back to your point earlier, we've been marketed so much in our lifespan, like our generation especially, we can see through that shit. We don't want like this cookie cutter, clean, feeling like a commercial approach to us because honestly, we're so sick of constant marketing in our face. And so, hold on. If anybody knows Ryker, knows we live and die by the AirPods. Alright, let's see if that reconnected. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Quick, sorry. There we go. There we go. Alright, sorry about that. I think that, you know, we need people that can spot obvious lacks of diversity or obvious things that like are not viable. Like we laugh all the time about when black people are on commercials for like betting and they always just like lay their head on the bed and we're like, yeah, without a like nightcap, like you're crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not like how it really is. Like they're not sleeping like that. And so I think that there's just these misses in culture that would easily be like, you know, eradicated if we just created a more diverse panel of people that could be a part of the conversation.
For sure. So what would you like to see more of when it comes to inclusion in the music industry?
I would like to just see more effort. I would like to see more effort from people on every single part of this industry. We need more inclusion, not just from the corporations that are feeling the pressure, but all the way down to the local scene. Like when you work on your album, are you working with all men? Are we working with all white men? Like where are we creating a sense of diversity? Are we even looking at women that are producers? Are we even allowing that space to happen? Are we as, you know, production companies or studios, are we interning women? Are we creating a space for that? You know, so like how can we all look at what we have to bring to this and open the door for more women, open the door for more people of color. I think that this isn't going to change until we change it. It's not going to change overnight, and it's not going to change without literal change. Like, we can't keep moving the way that we've moved. We have to identify a new way to create opportunity so that we can start to create a new narrative of inclusion.
Yeah, like the change needs to be on the smaller scale too, rather than just putting pressure on all the bigger guys. You know, change happens when it's
absolutely
happening, you know, in the background, underground, where no one's paying attention, and it's just, you know, it takes the smaller guys to impact the larger companies.
I agree. What happens on the ground is what they're really, you know, paying attention to. What we deem as acceptable is what they're going, like, we set the terms for morality, you know what I'm saying? So if we say that we're sick of these things, we aren't going to put up with these things anymore, that's when we start to see change.
For sure. 100%. So my last question for you is, what advice do you have for those that may not feel like they have a place in the industry, whether that's due to their skin color, their sexual orientation, or maybe even just because they have a lot of anxiety and doubt within themselves?
Yeah, that's tough because a lot of that might be due to demographic of like location. It might be due to, like you said, personal anxiety. I think that there's a pocket for everybody. So maybe you don't want to be top 10 Billboard charting artists. Maybe you just want to be a part of the section of the art community where you feel like you can safely make art. There's places and people for that, and I think that online has really helped break some of those barriers down. So being able to like go onto Facebook and identify maybe a Facebook group that is along the lines of what feels comfortable to you, and then seeing if anybody in that Facebook group is, where you're at or in your city, and maybe it just starts with, coffee with somebody, and then they invite you to something that they feel safe at, and now you've opened up more doors. So I think feeling safe is a huge part of this industry. Women have to feel safe. Men have to do their part to help women feel safe. I think venues have to do their part to help women feel safe. Other women got to do their part to help women feel safe, people of color. I think that, places that are dominated by white culture need to find a way to maybe add in a night or add in an event or add a show that is inclusive of different artists that they haven't worked with before. Like right now we're throwing this hip hop rock show. We throw it every year. It's called Unity. And we take 2 hip hop artists and 2 rock artists, usually include like one band from Seattle, and the rest kind of from Spokane. But we do this because we're bringing the rock community, which tends, especially in Spokane, to be very, Caucasian driven, and the hip hop community, which has, the majority of the diversity that we have in Spokane in it, and we put them together in one room. And it's very important to us that we do that once a year to continue to drive that idea that like you guys like both of this music and you all can be in the same room and enjoy the same things and appreciate each other, and that this is okay and we can create safe spaces. So I think it comes with collaboration, and it comes with effort, and it comes with certain people taking responsibility for the places that they stand in the industry and opening their doors to more individuals.
For sure. Wow, that was all great advice. Literally every answer to every question, you really know your stuff. And I mean, being an independent artist, everything's so up in the air, everything's so overwhelming, you don't know where to start. And, finding people like Ryker can really help advance your career, can really even just the support and the knowledge and everything. So if you're an independent artist out there, connect with Ryker, connect with people out there just like her. There's tons of people out there with the same kind of passion in different areas. So definitely networking is the biggest thing you can do in this industry. I know she stressed that the whole, throughout the interview, but if you're going to take away anything,
the number one key,
network with your local people and beyond.
Man, I couldn't have said it better. I think that if I can leave you with one quote, it's going to come from a mentor of mine that gave this to me, and I love to give it to others. I asked him, how do I be a part of the scene? Because at that time I was really struggling to be a part of the Seattle scene. It seemed so big to me. He said, how are you going to be a part of a scene that you're not a part of? And from that moment forth, I was showing up to Seattle, and I was showing up to shows, and I was just identifying who I saw, time and time again, and started to introduce myself and started to grow Instagram friends, and it spiraled from there. So just remember, you cannot be a part of a scene that you're not a part of. Networking is the number one key, and you do that, and everything will follow. So.
For sure. Well, it was very inspiring to hear your story and your journey, and yeah, it was so great talking with you, Ryker.
I appreciate you. Y'all connect with me on Instagram. It's Call Me Ryker, CALLMERYKER, or you can check out our company, which is directINFLUX, www.directinflux.com. So I hope to connect with all you guys. Hannah, so much. Thank you for your time. This has been honestly such a blessing. I really appreciate it.
Yes, it has been. Have a good one. Thank you.
Talk soon.